Welcome Taurus, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 8th of April for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now is your event chart for midnight on Monday. This provides a backdrop for the whole week. We need to be mindful of your ruler Venus. It is in your 12th house, suggesting that you could be thinking very carefully about certain associations. 12th house Venus positions can make us reminisce about people from the past, feel very nostalgic, perhaps also rather sad if someone's gone out of our situation or a relationship isn't quite as bubbly as it once was. But Venus does forge a very dynamic link with Pluto. This began last week when Venus made its way into your 12th house on the 5th. You can see Pluto's right at the top of your chart, suggesting your link to the world at large is going to be transformed hugely over the next years. There is going to be a revision from the 2nd of September through to the 18th of November when Pluto makes its way back into your sector of travel and widening your horizons. But essentially it's suggesting that your power can show itself professionally or in your local community or by voluntary or charitable contributions you make. But it's also possible that if you're doing things like this with Venus linking to Pluto in a subtle way, you may want to keep it a little bit quieter. Pluto in the 10th house is an interesting one. There's often a desire for greater recognition, but sometimes it's not complete because Pluto likes to work sometimes beneath the surface. The 10th house is a very obvious position. So maybe you're reaching out to someone professionally, having some confidential discussions or taking soundings, which are important for your career, but it may take a little time to really work into reality. But you can also see that Venus is very close to the Moon in the 12th house. So if you are feeling nostalgic or thinking about someone who's no longer in your life, that wouldn't be a surprise. But of course, as the day goes on, the Moon moves forwards and connects with the Sun and Chiron in house 12. This comes with the total solar eclipse, the third supermoon in succession. That's where the Moon is physically bigger and closer to the Earth. And it suggests over the next 12 months, you could do a lot of inner work because Chiron in the 12th house can be quite reflective. But of course, it's very psychological, the 12th house. Chiron can be where we shine. So if you are somebody, as I mentioned last week, who is involved in counselling, is a psychic, maybe even an astrologer, your delicacy is going to be really appreciated by the people you work with during this next half year. But if you have thought, for example, of going into business as an alternative therapist, for example, and converting a long-held hobby and interest into a business, the next few weeks are going to be very important to your progress because this week also sees Mars, the ruler of Aries, in a tight collaboration with Saturn, the planet of limitation. That becomes exact on Wednesday. If there is a long-term goal you have and you're doing all the research and preparing yourself with all this 12th house energy in Aries, it's really important that your plan is viable. And when Saturn meets with Mars on Wednesday, there could be a test. There could also be a test around a relationship, to be honest, because the 12th house can be where we discover when, sadly, people do not have our best interests at heart. And sometimes it can be really crushing to our sense of self if there is a feeling that someone's not as loyal as we would like, perhaps is not as committed, or perhaps not as sensitive if we're going through the mill in some way. And there could be an element of that for you this week, I'm afraid. But the good news is that by the end of this week, Mars moves forwards and forges an amazing link to Jupiter in your sign. Now that's within 3 degrees. That is going to become exact on the 19th of this month. And of course on the 21st, we have Jupiter and Uranus coming into a conjunction in your sign for the first time in 14 years, suggesting the more experimental things you've been working on in recent years, trying to change things up, can start to provide a payback to you. Mars is also going to support that event in a very dynamic way. So as much as some people may disappoint you and be fading out of your situation, there could be other players who come in who really are firmly in your corner. But essentially, this 12th house energy this week, which is going to go on for the next 6 months, is a lot about you deciding your spiritual, psychological and emotional direction in life. And if a hope you had isn't necessarily quite working, don't beat yourself up if you decide to have a change of plan, because remember, you've got Mercury in a retrograde also in house 12. So your thinking could therefore alter, because 12th house energy is very mutable. The great strength you have being a fixed sign is that when you apply yourself, it's generally in a very determined and long-term way. But this set of influences at the moment suggests that things are shifting, and it's shifting in a deep way. Perhaps there's certain elements of your nature, your shadow side, that you're going to become much more aware of. It just depends where we are in our personal development journey, because everybody may have experienced different things at different times. For example, like loss, some people don't lose their parents until they're quite late in their own lives. Other people will lose their parents when they're kids, which is a huge shock. So it's not, our lives are not divided on or determined only on what zodiac sign or ascendant we are or where our moon is. It's also to do with our experiences, our environmental experience. So it depends on where you are, but there's a huge opportunity here to get in touch with a part of your nature that you may not be completely familiar with. There may be some parts of yourself you don't even like, and that can be, again, an opportunity that this particular total solar eclipse linking with Chiron, the wounded healer, gives you the chance to embrace. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Taurus. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great week, and please like, comment, share or subscribe.